Hi, it's Matt. I'm a school-based occupational therapist, and I'm back with another What Do I Do If video. So this next installment is what do I do if my student has difficulty cutting with scissors? So, um, a lot of occupational therapists receive that referral for student concern. And I'm hopefully going to show you a few simple strategies that you can use as you're teaching your students to cut or as you're helping them through some struggles with that task. So I'm going to show you some things or just some general things about using standard student scissors. I know a lot of OTs out there might have other strategies that they might recommend as far as using some adaptive scissors. So you'll see loop scissors and spring-loaded scissors and all kinds of other types of scissors that might work well with your students. But generally we're going to see standard student scissors in classrooms and in students' kits. So I'd like to focus on those today because that's what you're going to see most of the time. You know, is that most student scissors these days have two different size holes. Obviously the smaller hole is for the student's thumb, and then the larger hole is for the other fingers. So and most of these scissors these days, it used to be that we had righty and lefty scissors, and there still are some left-handed scissors out there, but generally these scissors will work pretty well for both right-handed and left-handed students. And so really what you want to develop in your students is a few general rules as they learn how to cut. First of all, I like to tell my students that we always keep thumbs up while we cut. So that means that our thumbs are on top, and that goes for holding the scissors, and it also goes for holding the paper, because cutting is a two-handed task, and we need to maintain thumbs up with both of our hands as we cut. So I also like to instill in my students that we always cut away from our bodies. We never cut towards ourselves, so that we don't cut our clothing or ourselves, and just to maintain some safety. And it's really sort of slowing down and helping your student to understand that I need to coordinate both of my hands together in order to cut, especially if I'm cutting around a shape. It's one thing to cut straight lines or even just some slightly curved lines or to snip the edge of the paper, but eventually I need to be able to cut around a shape. And getting around those corners or around those sharper curves is going to require me to use both hands together. And so I'm going to try to show you what that looks like. And so let's just make a simple shape on here. I'm going to make a circle on this paper here. We'll try to cut it out. One thing that I have learned, especially in learning to cut, is that using something like cardstock or a little thicker paper is a little easier at first for children to learn how to cut. Just standard paper can be a little tricky, especially at first. If we're talking about preschool or talking about kindergarten age. Let's start with something a little thicker. We can really feel those scissors bite into that page, and it's a little easier to hold on to, and it doesn't flop as easily. So that's what I'm going to use today. So again, I remind my students that we use thumbs up, and that our thumb goes into that small hole at the top, and our other fingers go into the hole at the bottom. And I've checked that I have thumbs up on both my cutting hand and my helper hand, which is going to hold the paper. Now, one thing I have noticed as children start to cut is that they often will cut the wrong direction around shapes. So really what you want to make sure that you encourage your students to do, especially if you're cutting round shapes or cutting around something, is that I'm a right-handed person. So as I start to cut, I need to make sure that the direction that I'm cutting is counterclockwise, okay? If I were to try to cut clockwise around this shape, then my hands are kind of all jammed up and my arm kind of doesn't know what to do. I'm turning the wrong direction, and it really makes it difficult for me to use both my hands together in a coordinated way. So if I cut around this as a right-handed person, if I cut around counterclockwise, and vice versa, if I was left-handed, I would want to cut the opposite direction. I'd want to cut around this shape clockwise, okay? And that's going to allow me to both cut and subtly turn inwards towards the midline of my body, and also use my helper hand to turn that paper the opposite direction, kind of this motion as I cut. So I'm using both hands together, I'm maintaining thumbs up, and I'm making sure my scissors are pointed away from my body. And as I open and shut those scissors, I can fully see what I'm doing, and I'm able to use my helper hand to turn around, okay? Now, a lot of kids will try to leave that helper hand static. They won't move it at all, and they'll try to cut, and that cutting hand just goes all the way around. You really want to encourage your students to use two hands together in those sort of subtle turning motions as we adjust. And you might have to adjust the paper, your grip on the paper. You know, have your students learn that they can let go for a second and they can readjust their hand position as they cut around those shapes, okay? The other thing, if a student is having some difficulty maintaining thumbs up, a lot of kids will either try to hold the scissors upside down, or I'll even see, you know, kids try to hold them in the palm of their hand like this. You know, so our scissors are away from our body, we're thumbs up. If that's difficult, you can put a sticker on top of the scissors here, so that they need to maintain sight line with the sticker. So if they see the sticker, they know they're thumbs up. You could also put a sticker on the thumbnail of the student, or even like a ring or something special on that thumb, just to maintain, like, oh, I need to make sure that this thumb is up, and I'm maintaining that the whole time. So a little bit of visual support there if you need to. So those are some simple strategies for using standard scissors. Again, there are some adaptive scissors out there, so if you're having a lot of difficulty with a student, you know, learning to, a lot of kids will cut, but then they have difficulty opening up the scissors again. They can't get that concept of the fact that I need to open the scissors back up. So some spring-loaded scissors are out there that will automatically open after each cut. Those are great. The other thing is, I like to just kind of get into a cadence or a rhythm with my younger students, and just as we cut, we say open and shut, open and shut, open and shut. And sometimes that's enough just to make sure that we maintain not only shutting or closing the scissors, but opening them back up in order to cut. So hopefully those are some simple things you can do with your students. Hopefully they're helpful for you. And I will see you again in the next video.